Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of This May Be a Bad Idea. This is a podcast. It's a conversation on bravery. It tells the story of everyday people who faced what felt like the impossible and still bravely leaped into the unknown. I am your host, Nicole Butts. As I continue to share stories of former USAID staff and where they are now, I am super thrilled to introduce my guest today, fellow USAID alum, Lyla Bashan. Over the years, Lyla built a career in governance and community strengthening with USAID that took her from briefing Secretary Rice to postings in Armenia, Jordan, Tajikistan, and Guatemala. Her focus is always on making the world a better place and helping others create stable communities. But then, a little over a year ago, with the abolishment of USAID, like so many of us, Lyla faced a completely unexpected and uncertain future. Instead of looking for another job, Lyla chose a different path. She chose to create her own platform for impact. She founded Bashan Impact Solutions, a strategic advisory and consulting firm where she advises leaders on clarifying priorities, designing solutions, strengthening operations, identifying opportunities, and driving implementation forward. Lyla, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm happy to be here.
And I'm so happy to have you here. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Who is Lyla Bashan and what really drives you to continue embracing the possibility of working towards global positive change?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. And as cheesy as it is, I always trace my journey back to the sixth grade, because in the sixth grade, I did a report about the depletion of the Amazon rainforest, and it opened my eyes to how humans were impacting the environment. And so I became very interested in the environment starting from that point forward. And then fast forward a couple of years, and I met a United Nations official who worked on international peace and conflict resolution. And it gave me this aha moment where, humans can't care about protecting the environment if they're living in war and are scared for their lives. And so I decided I wanted to pursue international peace and conflict resolution in order to provide the context by which humans could then care about protecting the environment. And then in college, I got an internship at Mercy Corps, which is a humanitarian relief and development organization that has projects all around the world. And that exposed me to international development, which to me was really the connecting point where, if people can support themselves and their family, have access to healthcare, education, a job, if they're not living in war, then they can help protect the environment. And so that's how I spent the last 25 years working in international development and diplomacy. And I just feel like it's ingrained in my DNA, this feeling of I just want to help make the world a better place in any way I can. And I was so proud to serve for 19 years as a diplomat, first with the State Department and then with USAID, helping make America safer, stronger, the world a better place. And that hasn't left just because USAID has left. That instinct hasn't left me.
And that is one thing that I will say about all of us who have been on my show, and just really anyone who worked at the U.S. Agency for International Development, is that once in international development, your heart is always there. Once you are a humanitarian, your heart is always there. When you see the impact of what small and big deeds do, it's hard to stop. It's hard to step
100%.
back and say, okay, I'm done with that. I'm done with making a difference.
Yeah.
I'm just
And
going to
so
go do something completely different.
I wrote a book, it was published almost a decade ago, called Global and Extraordinary Guide for Ordinary Heroes, because I just felt like if Americans could understand what I understood from living around the world, but understand the systems and the issues and the challenges, they would care about helping to make the world a better place also. I was like, if it's just explained in an accessible, empowering way, then they would feel like it's their duty also. So I hope everyone reads my book and then goes out and makes the world a better place in their own way, because I don't think you need to have a career overseas in order to make your impact and your ripple of good in your community, your country, the world.
Ripple of good. I love that. I'm going to borrow that, Lyla. A ripple of good. One thing that I've said on previous episodes, and I'm sure I will say again on future episodes, is traveling, specifically for me, international traveling, has really opened my eyes to contentment. It has opened my mind and my eyes to what abundance actually is and could be. It has opened my eyes to how people live, some with so much, some with so little, yet they manage to be amazingly happy. And even traveling in America and just seeing how many different cultures we have here, the way that people live differently here, it's not necessarily as drastic. There are very few places in America, I think, that don't have like accessible electricity and things like that. But it's still so important, I guess, to branch out from our comfort zone and to really try to experience things that others are feeling and living. I think the old adage is to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Sometimes you just have to see their mile. You don't necessarily have to walk it to have a greater appreciation.
I feel like it gives you this investment and understanding of humanity that we so need in our world, because we are all just trying to get by and do our best, and seeing that, whether it's in, Tennessee or Tajikistan, or I wish I could think of a third T, Trinidad Tobago. It's just everyone is doing
Yes.
their own to get by, and seeing that firsthand and being like, you're a human just like me. I think that's so
Mhm.
essential.
We are all humans trying to do the best we can. Okay, so you just described that throughout your life, you have always sought adventure, fellow adventurer. Thank you, Lyla. But you've always moved towards jobs that produce steady incomes, jobs that felt at least pretty reliable and very steady. So now we no longer have that, and you are creating your own way. In the intro, I said that you felt compelled to not go work somewhere else and to build something. What made you decide to bet on yourself rather than look for another position somewhere else while still seeking adventure?
Yeah, that's a good question, because honestly, I've never had an entrepreneurial bone in my body. I do think that my foreign service job was probably the most legally protected job in the world. So I did think it was a pretty done deal, pretty, stable. And after 19 years of service, I was only 5 years away from being retirement eligible. And so I committed decades in my life with this understanding that then my retirement would be a certain way. And so I think I just felt so betrayed by the commitment I had made. And on behalf of my family, I dragged my family all over the world with me, and they were so wonderful to come. But it was a decision, that affected my whole family. And I felt so betrayed that I was reluctant to invest in another institution. And also after, being in development and diplomacy for a quarter century, I recognize that I really hustle. I really have strong skills and abilities and expertise. And I realized that I for the first time in my life, I wanted to invest in my own creation using those skills and abilities, as opposed to giving it to an external source. And so because of that, I was just so compelled to create my own thing. And it's weird to me because I've always been a planner. I've always had a plan. I've always had that stability, but then it was taken away overnight. And everything, the framework for my family's life, our livelihood and my retirement all vanished overnight. And I've really taken the opportunity to take a step back and be like, wow, every scaffolding and structure you had around your life was taken away. I'm grateful my family is healthy and that we're together. And that's what I've really focused on. But I think when everything is torn down, that either gives you the opportunity to put your head down and keep going. And honestly, at first, that was my first instinct to be like, oh my gosh, well, I'm my family's breadwinner. I need to get another job. And I applied something like 20 jobs in a week. And I just felt like this immense need to figure this out and get another job. And then, there was a moment we were traveling for the whole year. I had taken a year off and we were living out of backpacks in Airbnbs, homeschooling our children, traveling throughout Asia. And so we were on Koh Phangan, this tropical island in Thailand, because that was also part of it where I was like, the universe conspired to have me on a beautiful tropical island while my life was falling apart, as opposed to in an embassy where I didn't know if we were going to have to leave the country overnight, if I'd have to pull my kids out of school, if we'd be able to bring anything back with us. I felt so protected in a lot of ways. And it gave me a chance to listen to this inner voice that I think's been there all along. And I've always encouraged other people to follow their instincts. And I'm sure that's been part of my decision making, but it hasn't been. I've been rational. I've been plan-based. I've been, strategic. And so that little voice said, trust your instinct and go for your instinct and create your own thing, as opposed to doing the practical thing, which would be getting another job.
The thing that you said about feeling so betrayed and then thinking, I won't betray myself. I know what I'm worth.
Well put.
I know what I can do. I am a hustler and I've got this. That is mwah. That is amazing. Like, I know that I can trust myself. I know what I am capable of, and I'm going to invest my energy, my passion, my thoughts in myself because I've got me. Lyla, all the feels, all
Well,
the feels.
it's a leap of faith in myself. And that's it. That's scary. It's exciting. It's all of that. That's why I have all the feels too. I feel the same way.
It is an emotional roller coaster, is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
It definitely is. So what you just said is a fantastic segue. Now, as you are betting on yourself, as you are believing in yourself, you have built this business, Bashan Impact Solutions, and in this business, you continue to evolve. So when we first started talking, you were focused on the travel industry, and now you've broadened the sector that you are working in with more defined solutions within that sector. So how was that? What was behind this decision? How does one evolve and take that step forward after investing so much time in one path?
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel? Because to me, I think that that's brave to say, this is not working like I thought it was, or it just doesn't feel quite right. I'm gonna do something a little bit different here. But it's scary. It's scary because you've invested a lot of time and energy in one path and then be like, oh, go left.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could be something different.
Well, I'll admit this whole experience has been insanely humbling to go from being a senior diplomat with a quarter century experience to now being a solopreneur and figuring it out on my own, and people not always responding to my emails or, it's very humbling. And to be learning, I mean, I loved my job before because I felt like at USAID I was constantly learning. This is a different kind of learning because as a business owner, you have to wear all the hats. You have to take steps forward and then iterate. And so it has been a really steep learning curve going from the world's largest bureaucracy to being a business owner and an entrepreneur. And so I've been made sure to give myself that space to learn, to grow, to iterate. I was overwhelmed thinking about all the millions of things I could do and would like to do and wanted to do because, after my career, I do have a broad range of skills. So I was kind of like, wow, it's so overwhelming. And so at first I focused in on corporate social responsibility, thinking, oh, I'll just do for the private sector what I did for the US government, help them achieve their goals through basically what I think of as like strategic social impact or like community investment. For the US government, it was foreign policy and national security goals. For the private sector, it's return on investment, brand recognition, all of that. But that was my idea. But then I realized, well, I don't actually know what that means in actuality. And maybe corporate social responsibility isn't exactly what I thought it was. And how do you even crack that net? So that's why I'd focused in on the travel sector, because it employs 1 out of 10 people globally. And in all the countries where I've served, it's been a very important economic driver. And obviously here in Hawaii, where I live now, it provides over 20% of the local GDP. So it's a very important sector. So I thought I would focus in on that. But then I realized I still don't really feel ownership over this. And I've been doing this by talking to everyone, because the best advice I've gotten is to just start and learn and take baby steps and be willing to iterate and make mistakes, because you can't figure it all out in your head. You need to be implementing in order to learn. And so just a couple weeks ago, I realized that for the first time in my adulthood, I am going to be in one place where I can invest and really be. For most of my adulthood, I've moved countries every 2 to 4 years. And so I haven't had that stability, where the big island of Hawaii is where we've always come back to. It's been our home base because it's where my parents live. And so now that we're living here full time, I feel like there's such an opportunity to invest in my community and take what I've learned from countries all over the world and try to respond to the challenges here, and use the approach where I'm using my expertise and my skills, as opposed to being like, oh, I'm going to impose on you, you should help communities. That wasn't working. But instead being like, well, I'm good at developing strategies and improving operations and ensuring implementation happens and happens well. And so instead of being like, you should do community investment, I've instead been like, well, I have these skills. Let me help you achieve your goals, whether it's a nonprofit working in the community or the local government or a private sector entity that's going to bring more jobs to a community. So looking at it a different way has been really helpful for me. And it's not something that I would have figured out just thinking through. So it felt like a natural progression to actually focus on my skills and the value I can provide, as opposed to this idea I had in my head of what people should be doing.
And that is such an interesting reframe, that you're like, I felt like I was forcing myself on people, trying to tell them what they should be doing. And no one wants to be told what they should be doing by an outsider. What do you mean I'm not doing it right? Um, but offering a different solution, offering to help them gain efficiencies and to really maximize their potential as they are, by doing small tweaks and leading programs and leading change. And I think that is something that is extremely needed right now, because change is a common for all of us in one shape or another, in all parts of our lives, to include in our professional lives, whatever that looks like for you. But for companies to invest in making sure that it is effective change, and that it's not just change for change's sake, and that they are bringing everyone along as opposed to just being told. And that makes change more palatable.
Yeah,
If you understand and work with people and collaborate, it makes it so much more palatable than just telling from on high. So I think it's very timely what you are doing, Lyla, and I'm sure you're going to be just uber, uber, uber successful and you're going to be turning work away.
Well, so part of my model is I've engaged some of my old colleagues from USAID and people I've met throughout my career to be global impact partners. I have my certain skills and expertise, but because most of my career I managed large teams and portfolios, I realized that you don't have to be a technical expert in order to be a good problem solver
Mm-hmm.
and,
Mm-hmm.
leader. But I also realize I don't know everything and I can't do everything. So I have this cadre of amazing professionals that I've slowly been reaching out to join my efforts so that if I do acquire a client who needs something I can't provide, or if there's more work than I can do, then I can call on these global impact partners to provide their unique skills and abilities. Because there's this incredible, highly skilled, highly committed, highly professional workforce around the world now that are looking for new opportunities. And so I'd love the chance to help them find some of those opportunities and provide immense value along the way.
Yes, and Lyla is bringing others along. And that is something that I hear from us, the opportunity to bring highly skilled, like, just so knowledgeable people who have done things that most people cannot even imagine, and they've solved some of the hardest problems, and bring them along and have them be pivotal to your success. And, you know, so any listeners who have hard problems, like super duper hard problems, I mean, they'll take the easy ones too. They'll take the softballs. But if you need a team that can support you, that can collaborate, and that can give you a reframing and a different perspective, a perspective that not many people have, then you should definitely consider Bashan Impact Solutions. So, jumping into our next question is, Lyla, when I met you, I felt like we were just such kindred spirits.
Me too.
And at one point, you said that you have more woo than most people, and that you trust the universe and your intuition. And you've talked a bit about trusting your instincts. Has that grown stronger as you are experiencing this immense change and you're kind of surfing, to use a Hawaii euphemism, surfing
That's
into
fun.
the
That's fun.
unknown?
Yeah. So, my mom's a meditation teacher. She's amazing. She's written 5 books, 5 volumes of this Holy Wow series, which is so incredible. And so she's always been like my life coach and my guide. And so I think that's why I have more woo because she's brilliant and I've garnered the benefits of that. But like I was saying earlier, I was always like, yeah, I'm into the woo, but I'm really a planner and I got my plans and I think things through and I do my research. But when our lives imploded and everything we had built was taken away, that's why I said, gosh, it was great doing it that way, doing the planning and the thinking and the research. And it got me this far. But now's my opportunity to take a different perspective and to pivot and try to approach my life in a more instinctual way, to have faith in the universe, to trust the universe, to work hard. I have definitely been working hard and I've been letting my instinct guide me more and trusting the universe. This good friend of mine gave me a card that said, trust the infinite universe, stay open to its endless possibilities. And then she wrote in it, have faith in the process. And that's been such a mantra for me where it's like, I'm really walking into the unknown and that's scary after, you know, 20 years of having the structure of the US government on my plans. It's very scary. And at the same time, I'm listening to that voice that says, keep walking and keep going in that direction and have faith and trust the universe. So yeah, it's definitely like hugely increased since our lives imploded a year ago. It's crazy. We're going there and hopefully it all works out.
Well, and with that, was there a moment where you had to choose between fear and faith? And how did you do that?
Yeah, well, I think that instinct where I was like, I have to apply to 20 jobs in one week. That was the fear that was saying, oh my God, I just lost everything. I need to rebuild as quickly as possible. I need to like get back where I feel stable and in control. And when I was able to take a step back and take a deep breath, and being on a beautiful Thai paradise island didn't hurt that process. I'll be honest with you. But I think that's a process you can go through anywhere. You just have to like have the recognition like, wow, I'm really making fear-based decisions right now, because it's something I'm very conscious of, is wanting to make love-based decisions as opposed to fear-based
Mhm.
decisions. And I was scared and I was hurt and I was overwhelmed, and I was coming at my life from that point. I gave myself that time to like mourn and be depressed and have an existential crisis. I mean, I didn't go straight from, oh, I'm making a fear-based decision, to like, let's look in the future and have faith in the universe. It's a
Mhm.
process. But that's when I started listening and thinking about my options and feeling overwhelmed by my options. And I know I'm still on that journey. I'm still walking that path. I think something I've really learned is that there is comfort in thinking everything is all set and you have a plan. I mean, I had my plan and that was taken away. And so now I recognize there's certain comfort in recognizing that no plan is actually solid. I hadn't realized that before, but recognizing that you can take your steps forward and hope for the best, but no matter what, you don't really know how things are going to turn out.
You
So
don't.
that goes back
You
to being in
don't.
the moment. That's a big part of what I did too, is I would focus on my breath and come back to the moment when I'd start to like spiral and be like, but what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like, who am I now without my career? You know, I would take a deep breath and come back to the moment and be like, in this moment, I am safe. My family's safe. My family's healthy. You know, like I am just right here. And the being back in the present moment has been a real grace for me.
About being present in the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
I love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I think this is a great transition into the question. So, were there ever times when you thought to yourself, this may be, in fact, a bad idea?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, there were definitely times. I mean, I am a like overwhelming optimist. Like I just know that that is how I operate, from a very optimistic perspective. And I have a lot of self-confidence. And so that equation has led me to feel a little bit better about things. And also because I just really try to be in this place where I'm like, I trust the universe. I trust it'll all work out. Keep taking a step forward. But it is scary when, as the breadwinner, I am conscious that the clock is ticking for me to be figuring this out, and that my family is supporting me and taking a risk on me as well as I explore this new venture. And so there have definitely been times where, you know, my husband and I are doing a budget talk or something like that. And I'm just like, oh, how will this work? Or when I start thinking out the practicality, okay, well, you need to do this in order for this to happen. And so there have definitely been times, I have to say, not in the last couple months, even with me shifting this focus. Yeah, I've felt more secure and confident, because it's this idea of things might not work out how you think they're going to work out, but they're going to work out one way or another. I mean, a realization that was really comforting to me was looking back on my life and being like, I've had the most incredible life and it's been amazing and I'm so lucky. And that's not because of USAID. It's not because of my career. It's because of me. And recognizing that, like, oh, the magic was in me, not USAID. It's going to make me cry because, like,
And the magic is inside you, Lyla. I have only known you for a brief time, but I can feel your magic from DC. You have something within you that draws people to you, and you are just so approachable and so kind and just full of optimism and hope. And it really just exudes from you. And you are incredibly right. It is in you and it is all going to work out. And for anyone that's being brave, it's, I've said it before, I will say it again. It is about the journey. The destination may be completely different than you expected, but that does not mean that it is not wonderful. It does not mean that you have not arrived where you should be. And we have to embrace that. We have to embrace those steps because that is what brings the joy. That is what brings the determination. That is what brings us the strength, is those moments where we think it may be a bad idea, but then we realize, no, because we are ourselves and we are going to fight for this. And this is what we're going to do. So,
I mean,
Lila,
that
thank you for
uncertainty
being
is
so vulnerable with
hard.
that.
Oh, well,
It
and
is. It is hard.
Nicole, I hope that everyone recognizes the magics inside of them. I'm not special. I was just given the circumstance to figure that out. But I hope everyone recognizes it's never an external entity or reality that makes them special and magic. It is inside of them, because that's a real gift, recognizing that it's in all of us.
And Lila, this is your woo. Your woo is coming out. It is telling us all.
Oh, oh,
It's hard to remember sometimes that the magic is inside, but it is. I think that magic is not singular to one group of people. It is out there for everyone. We have to step back and we have to give the magic an opportunity to come out.
yes, totally. And
Right.
that's where, you were saying you say yes to things. I think that's where that comes in, saying yes to, opportunities or things that scare you or your instinct, and being willing to like be in that uncertainty, be in that vulnerability allows you to tap into, I don't know, your power in a lot of ways.
Hmm. Being vulnerable allows you to tap into your power.
Yeah. Oh,
I
I
think that
think
that's another
vulnerability
phrase
is
we should.
such a power. I think it really is, because you're saying like, I
It
trust
is.
myself enough to know that I can be vulnerable and still be strong and still be present.
Okay, so now we are to the fun part. And we've talked at length about why I think you are so amazing and brave and vulnerable. We're going to just keep going back to that. But what do you feel, Lila, has been your bravest moment in your life?
Ooh, um, I mean, asking that, I think of two times where I have just gotten on the plane and gone and not let my fear talk me out of it. One was going to do my study abroad in Japan in college, because I got on that plane heading to Japan, and it was the first time I was going to live in a foreign country. I was there for a semester, and I didn't really know anyone on the trip, and I was scared. And the first couple of days, I was so like lonely and downtrodden and confused. And then I got over it, and I made friends, and I, honed my language skills, and I learned about the culture, and it was the most amazing experience. But I was so scared getting on that plane, saying goodbye to my friends, saying goodbye to my parents. But I didn't let the fear win. And I think that's the key, is not letting the fear win, because the fear is not the ally it pretends itself to be. Uh, and the same is true with this other time when I got on the plane. I was going to Liberia to write a stabilization proposal, and I had already been working for the State Department for a couple of years, but I still felt like an imposter, which is so silly, but this is something we do in our heads. I got to a master's in conflict and peace. Oh, but how do I know? And I was so scared to show up there, and I still got on the plane, and I went and I wrote an amazing proposal that was so great. And it was such a great experience being there and learning and developing and building. And I'm so proud of what I created. And I really I going back to that moment and being like, I got on the plane, even though I didn't know how things were going to turn out. I found a lot of solace in that during this time of uncertainty and transition, and even having a little imposter syndrome, because it's like, well, I was a diplomat for 20 years, but I've never been a consultant. And it's like, what are you, what are you doing in your head? Come on. And so going back and being like, I got on the plane to Liberia because I don't let the fear win. I let my bravery win. And as I reminded one of my kids when they were scared going to preschool, you cannot be brave without being scared. If you're not scared, you're not being brave. You're just doing something. And so letting that fear be part of my experience, but not letting it win has been really important.
So Lyla, your point was you can't be brave without having fear. But how do you push through that? How do you say, fear not today? You're not going to win today. I'm going to do that hard thing. I'm not going to look away. I'm going to take ownership of something that I've done. There are so many ways that we can demonstrate bravery, but what stops us every time is fear. And getting on that plane and realizing that it will be okay in the end, but just getting on the plane, because you tell yourself that, but that's the thing about fear. Fear is irrational and it can take complete control of everything, but you do it anyway, because where else are you going to be? Do you want to be the person who never did anything because you're scared because of fear? So I thank you for sharing that part of your life with us from the early days, from a young Lyla. Lyla, thank you for all of your vulnerability today. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for letting people and the listeners know that it is okay to pivot. It is okay to do things in iterations. So, last question for you today, Lyla. If you were to advise others on how to take the leap, how to overcome fear, what would you tell them?
Well, I think the real priorities are trusting your instincts and learning to listen to that voice and being kind to yourself during that process where you're learning everything will be okay and having that confidence and ignoring the fear and instead making love-based decisions, as I would call it, even though that sounds, woo-woo, and being kind to yourself along the way. Those are all muscles that you flex. And the more you flex them, the better you become at them. And so I am much better today at not giving into my fear than I was 20 years ago going to get on that plane to Monrovia, because I have been consistently flexing that muscle. And it's just if you need a reminder, write it on a Post-it note and put it on your mirror, on your dashboard, or in your calendar that it pops up once a week. Like, don't listen to the fear, because it is just something that you need to keep practicing and you get better at it. And so I just say, keep at it and have faith in yourself and take that jump, because all you need to do is be walking in a direction and taking baby steps and figuring it out as you go along, because it's much more realistic anyways to be taking those baby steps rather than being like, oh no, I can't try this thing I'm afraid of until I have the perfect plan, because that perfect plan doesn't exist. That's just the fear talking you out of taking that first step.
That is the fear talking us out of taking that first step. Love it. But again, thank you for sharing with us, Lyla. We have to take baby steps and move in the direction we want to be, and we cannot let fear stop us from moving, stop us from progress. So thank you again so much for sharing. It's been wonderful talking to you, Lyla. It always is such a pleasure. I know that you are going to be just infinitely successful, and you are going to continue to do what you do best, which is support others and help them be their best versions of their companies and themselves. So I look forward to seeing all that you will do in the future. Listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of This May Be a Bad Idea. Please do leave a 5-star review, jot a little note and leave a review there. It'll help listeners find the podcast, listen, and subscribe. And we will see you next time. Bye.